China, 2012. From March 29th to April 6th, we had a group of students that visited China, and I get to visit with them today. Could you tell me your name and what grade you are?
My name is Pitra, and I'm in 11th grade.
I'm Maddie Sandberg, and I'm in 11th grade.
I'm Jenna Jacobson. I'm in 12th grade.
I'm Phil Nadolny. I'm in 11th grade.
So, Phil, you spent about 10 days in China. What was the most impressive part of your trip?
Well, the most impressive thing when I was in China was most likely the city of Shanghai. It was very clean. It was still Chinese, but it had a somewhat Western feel to it. There were huge buildings. We actually got to go up into the Shanghai World Financial Center to the 100th floor, and it provided a very interesting bird's eye view of the whole city, and it was a very striking experience.
Now, it's my understanding that most of the cities that you were into were relatively large.
Very large.
Do you know how big they were?
I believe the smallest we went to was Xi'an, which was 11 million.
I understand that you went to the Great Wall. Was that pretty entertaining?
The Great Wall was another very interesting experience. The most striking thing is the mountains, because I think, personally at least, when I always saw pictures of the Great Wall, obviously the Great Wall is in the mountains, but it never really occurred to me until I was in the bus driving to Badaling, which is the site where we saw the Great Wall. It's very mountainous, and it's very impressive, and it's an interesting experience how you step onto something that old. It's a very profound experience. I don't know how else to explain it.
Did you have any free time and be able to walk around any of the cities at all?
Well, we weren't turned loose in the cities and told to be back in 3 hours, of course, but we had some free time at each site, at each tourist attraction that we visited. For example, at the Great Wall, I think we had 3 hours to see the Great Wall and eat lunch and get back to the meeting point. And we had allotted time at most of our sites for doing basically what we wanted to do, seeing what we wanted to see, and reading the information that was available.
Thanks, Phil. Okay, Jenna, how did you like the trip to China?
I thought it was really interesting, and it makes me want to travel more, especially in college. So, yeah.
Do you think that when you go to college that you're going to take Chinese again?
Probably not, because I'm going to St. Cloud State, and they don't have a very extensive Chinese program. But I might do it in my free time if I can.
What was the most enjoyable thing that you did while you were in China?
I think seeing all the cities was really cool. Like, I really like big cities, especially Shanghai. We got to go on the riverboat ride at night and see the whole city lit up, so that was really, really cool.
Lots of tall buildings reflecting on the river. Is that the way it looked?
Yep, and all the buildings were lit up. They all had really colorful lights, and it was really, really cool.
Were you able to meet just regular Chinese people? Did people come up and talk to you on the street? Or?
We'd try to talk to people, but they would kind of laugh at us, not like in a mean way, but they just thought it was kind of cute that we knew what they were saying, but it was pretty hard to communicate with the people.
Did they talk Chinese a lot fast? We talk faster than probably somebody who's trying to learn English. Was that kind of the way that they talked? And were you able to pick up words once in a while?
Yeah, their vocabulary was way bigger than what we've learned so far, and they did talk really fast too, so it was pretty hard, but we could get a few things here and there.
I understand the beds were really comfortable. Is that true?
The beds at our first hotel were basically a concrete slab with a sheet on top, and the pillows felt like they were made out of rice and straw, but the other two hotels in Xi'an and Shanghai, they were pretty normal.
Welcome to the Shanghai jail, huh?
Yeah.
Mr. Lynham, he showed you a good time, didn't he? Anything else that you remember about the trip that you'd like to share?
The babies there had their pants split open and they didn't wear diapers. Once they reached about age 1, they would just go, and I thought that was really, really weird.
You aren't wrong, okay?
You asked.
Thank you. Let me see now. If I remember, we were talking a little bit earlier, and I understand that you love the food in China. Is that correct?
No. I like American Chinese food, but the Chinese food there kind of had an Asian taste to it, I guess, which makes sense, but I did not like a lot of it. I liked rice.
Okay. Well, I'm not sure that I'd be much different than you are, okay, Maddie? So my question is then, was the food different? My understanding is you were kind of in northern China, and then you went to southern China, you worked your way south. Was there a difference in the food?
Well, I probably couldn't really tell you because I didn't eat a lot of it. But you should probably ask that girl if you want that.
Oh, okay. Well, I can do that. She looks really eager to talk about the food. So. Was there anything that was particularly surprising to you as you traveled around China?
Surprising. The traffic, I guess, was really super ridiculous. There were so many cars, and it was really aggressive. Because, we were in a tour bus, and if they were, wanted to merge lanes, the car that, was in the way had to get out of the way. They didn't check. They just went.
Were they like all these little smart cars, about as big as or were they Kias and Mercedes and what? I mean, it's kind of a crazy question, but I guess I'm just wondering, were they like normal-sized cars?
Yeah, they're all pretty normal cars. You wouldn't really tell the difference at all, probably except for the license plates.
Did you meet any teenagers during your trip at all?
We went to a school, and they set up this get-together kind of, and we got sat down with 5 students, and there's 5 of us, and we talked, and since we could talk some Chinese, and then they could actually talk some really good English, so it was really fun, and we got to build a tower out of newspaper and water bottles.
Did their life seem significantly different than your lives did?
Not really. I guess they're kind of a typical teenager, but they focus a lot more on school than we do, and they talked about how much homework they had, and just school is just way more important to them, I guess.
So did I understand that you came back and you're all going to bring this proposal to the Board of Education to increase the time in school and the amount of required homework? Is that true?
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Lex, I finally got to you. So my understanding is you really loved the Chinese food. Is that right?
Yes, I loved it, and I think that anyone who didn't like it is absolutely crazy.
So what kind of food did you really like, or weren't you able to figure it out?
Well, hands down, I loved the spicy celery. It was so good, so simple. What a dish, seriously. It was really good. And I ate mushrooms for the first time while I was there. My mom was very proud of me. And there's just a lot of vegetables. Basically, everything was vegetables with rice or vegetables with some meat. But I don't know. I've never loved vegetables so much. I was kind of nervous, but then I tried it and I loved it.
Was it like a known meat or an unknown meat?
Usually I really wasn't sure what it was going to be. But things that you would expect to be good, they'd be oh, here's some chicken. You're yeah, chicken. I didn't necessarily but I love pork, so I always love the pork. And I ate cabbage, too. Love the cabbage.
When you traveled around China, was there anything that you said, wow, I want to bring that back to the U.S.?
Golly, I spent a lot of money while I was there, so there was sure a lot of things that I brought back to the U.S. Basically, every trinket I could get my hands on, right?
It sounds like you went to a lot of tourist places, too. Is that right?
Well, yeah, a lot of places we went were pretty touristy, so, if we went somewhere, we had, a guide or someone who knew English, so they could, show us around. But we did get to experience a night on the town, me, Maddie, and our friend Austin. We went with Mr. Lynham to a candy shop, and we actually practiced speaking Chinese there with some people because they didn't know any English at all, and we just told them about ourselves, and they were really, really interested in what we had to say, so it was really cool just having someone willing to try and communicate with us in our broken Chinese language.
I understand that there was your favorite snack in China was, you want to tell me what that was? I know you didn't eat any, but you were describing it to me.
The people there would snack on, they came in little packages, like little aluminum-looking packages, and they had chicken claws and spicy duck tongues and like gizzards, and it was all spicy, but I didn't try any because it looked really gross, and they would just snack on them everywhere. It was interesting.
Was that like just walking down the street, or were they sitting in a restaurant while they did that?
No, it was just like on the street, or we saw people at the Great Wall, like kind of like you would bring a snack if you went somewhere. That's what they had with them.
Instead of potato chips, they brought duck tongue.
Right.
Okay. Wow. Did you try any exotic food? What was the most exotic food you tried? Now, I know you don't like Chinese food, but what was the most exotic food you tried?
Probably the duck. But I didn't really branch out very far, but...
Well, I hate to tell you this, but I'd have been right next to you, okay? That's where I would have been too, so. In terms of the school, was it a big school? Because my understanding is their schools are huge. How big was it? Do you have any idea?
5 floors to it, like 5 or 6, something like that. And then, I don't know, we only got into like a little portion of it, but they had like this huge like track area with like athletic stuff out there, I guess. It was just really big.
So what was the temperature while you were there? Was it warm, cold?
Well, in Beijing, it was kind of chilly, not like a bad temperature, but kind of like it was here in Minnesota. And then in Xi'an, it got a little warmer, kind of breezy. And then by the time we got to Shanghai, it was pretty warm, but like about the same like as Xi'an. Not a lot changed, but I mean, it got warmer.
Did you like going up to the Great Wall and climbing it?
Well, the Great Wall, at first, like, I was just kind of expecting just there to be, like, a wall, and we just, like, walk on it and be like, oh, this is so cool, but it's, like, really, really steep, and, like, I even made a video with one of my friends on it just so the people back home knew how hard it was to climb up that wall, because you would be, like, on your hands and knees just, like, going up this wall, and you'd be, like, oh, breathing so hard.
So do you think it was more than 15 feet tall, or was it?
It's hard to say, but I mean, I don't really believe that you can see it from space because no matter how tall it is, it's still like this thin, so.
Okay. I thought it was wider than that.
Well, I mean.
A little wider than that. Yeah. A little wider than that. Phil, what was the flight like? How long was it? I'm assuming you left from Minneapolis, St. Paul, and then flew someplace, but how about telling us a little bit about the flight?
Well, you're right. We had a quite long plane trip. We started in Minneapolis, St. Paul, and we had a 1-hour plane ride to Chicago, where we had several hours of layover. And then very late on the 29th, we left on a 13-hour plane ride to Beijing and got there roughly the middle of the night, 10, 11 o'clock. And by the time we got to our hotel, it was 12 or 1, I believe.
One of the things I've heard is that all of you who went on the trip were really good representatives of Willmar. Willmar Senior High, the community, and I appreciate that. And hopefully you had a great time, and hopefully you learned a little bit, even if it wasn't like in Chinese food. But thank you so much for allowing me to talk to you today. And hopefully you had a great trip, and maybe sometime you'll get to go back to China again. Thank you. We hope you enjoyed this Cardinal Clips as we talked to Todd Lynham and his students about their recent trip to China. And remember, our students today are going to be our connection to China tomorrow.